sometimes you need a bit of a crisis to enter into a startup. It's not when everything is rosy, salaries are good, life is nice, you invest in a house, you buy a car. It's not really a good time for risking. But when things are not so rosy, and we had this period of Western companies firing people, also in Eastern Europe, or Western startups closing down and firing people. This actually puts people outside of their comfort zone, and then they are starting to think, right? No, what should I do now, right? And these are good moments for startups to be started.
Hi everybody, I'm Oana from startup-urilor, and today I have the pleasure to have with me Rumen Iliev, a partner at LAUNCHub Ventures, a leading early stage venture capital focused on investing in startups in the Southeastern Europe and Central Eastern Europe, from Bulgaria, and also with investments in Romania. Hi Rumen, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Hello, Anna. Thank you very much for having me, and hello to everyone who is reading or listening to startup-urilor podcasts and articles.
Thank you very much for being here today. I must remember to look at the camera and not at my computer for our discussion. Let's start because we are close to the start of March. I think that our interview will be broadcasted during the first week of March. Let's talk about the future and 2025. How do you see this year now for the ecosystem in the region? I don't know. Let's try some predictions on from your part.
Okay, starting with the difficult questions. I thought that there was something more easy, like introduce yourself. But all right, I don't know how good we are in predictions, since what we do is we invest in startup companies, as you mentioned, from Southeast and Central Europe. In venture capital, it has been several years already that the situation has been less booming than compared to the COVID era. But to be honest, as an asset class, we see a lot of development in venture capital. We are very positive on the upcoming 2025 and on the following years. After every recession, and venture capital was in a recession as an asset class, if you like, in terms of providing returns to LPs and being able to excite the broader community in the last years, this has been a challenge. After every such time, I think comes another growth, and we are actually seeing the first sign of this growth, and we are seeing again the first sign of the asset class starting to perform again according to the expectations. So to give you more, if you like, meat on the bone, or why do I'm positive, which may be a bit controversial compared to the global economy. Or real economy that many of your viewers or readers may be seeing. Venture capital, it's a bit it's affected usually faster than changes, especially changes in the sentiment in the US and larger economies. At the moment that there were first signs of recessions in US, or first signs of slowing down. It wasn't a recession; it was a slowdown. The large corporations usually stop buying small companies. They're freezing their M&A activities, and then the other place where you can see this reaction is stock exchanges. What happened in the stock exchanges also, and in 2022 and 2023, is that there were no new IPOs. So basically, the general public was concerned, and they didn't want to basically deploy. The professional investors were concerned; they didn't want to invest as well their money. So the stock exchange was frozen. And what happens to VCs, to larger funds, is that obviously that they don't have exits, because the exits of VC funds and is to either to larger corporations, so their portfolio companies to be acquired by big companies, or their portfolio companies to become public. These are usually the two paths to provide liquidity. And this wasn't available for the last 2.5 years. We haven't seen large IPOs. We haven't seen almost any IPOs happening in 2023. Some started happening in 2024. These 2 years were, let's say, less fruitful, and the VC funds were not able to provide the returns because the exits were not happening. So they were not able to provide the returns their investors expected. Now, and the time become very, very lucrative for private equity, for example, who can enter, acquire cheaper or assets or on a very reasonable price from venture funds, and then have the patience to grow with these assets for several years and then do very good returns. Now, I think the tides are changing again. So the venture capital entered into recession very, very fast after the first signs of recession in the U.S. stock exchange, NASDAQ, and in the sentiment of the large corporations in 2022. And now this is basically the venture capital is the first one to feel the recovery. So that's why it may sound strange, but in our industry has been feeling this recovery through the last year, while the real economy haven't felt this slowdown so dramatically, and now they feel it way more. I'll give you an example from our portfolio. So we started 2024 with the first large Series A round happening in our company. So we're a seed investor. Seed investor can say seed round is for us everything below 5 million euro. Everything above, we call it Series A for simplicity. In 2022 and 2023, Series A rounds were more rare. Series B was almost non-existent, exactly because the larger the funds were, the closer they are to the exit paths toward the stock exchange and the large buyouts and the large acquisitions. And when they were not seeing this, they were not investing. So these are the first leading indicators that give us a sense of how the sentiment in our industry is changing. So we started 2024 with a large Series A in a Hungarian company with pre-money valuation of above 100 million. This is not so typical. It wasn't typical for the previous years. So we started very strong 2024. And we also finished with a Series B in a Bulgarian company, Ampeko. So it was also the first Series B for probably few years actually. So since 2020, since the beginning of 2022, we haven't been seeing so many B rounds. B rounds are usually large rounds, let's say on average between 20 and 50 million investment company. Valuations are already closing to 200 million and above. So these large rounds weren't present. They kind of disappeared at the start of the war in Ukraine, at least from most of the companies in Europe. Basically, they become very difficult to materialize, and now we see their return. So we see the return of the Series B investors investing in the companies. Also, from our fund perspective, only we had 3 Series A's last year. So on a portfolio of 20, now close to 25 companies nowadays, 3 Series A in 1 year, it's a good track. That tells us that the markets and the investors do have the appetite to start investing again. So that's why I'm kind of optimistic. So I see the return of larger funds. I see the investment rebounding. We see the first IPOs happening on the stock exchanges and on NASDAQ. We see that the large organizations are not firing people. They may be having not hiring, but they're not firing. So we don't see this. We see the economy returning to a more normal pace, especially in US and larger markets because we are connected to them for our exits. And on the other hand side, we see a lot of changes in the technology stack. So with the advancement of AI, we see a lot of transformation changes, and this usually creates opportunities for startups. So on one hand side, we see return of the capital, and on the other hand side, we see changes of technologies, which combined should produce, from the venture capital perspective, very fruitful 2025. This is how we see it compared to the real economy, way more optimistically, I think.
That's a very good thing, and a very good perspective. And I was really going to ask you if you're watching what's happening in the States and in Western Europe, and if how is this influencing also your investment decisions when it comes to your portfolio.
The effect is really fast. Venture capital as a asset class. Venture capital is a high risk, high return investment, meaning that we invest in companies that have this high risk of not being successful, but they are after a large markets and large opportunities to become way bigger than a local or regional business. That's why there is this strong connection that the startup companies usually chase either customers or they chase markets that are global, and they are affected by the changes of the global markets in the larger economy. So they're not so affected by the local politics in the Balkans, which is never good. So this, in the startup world, it's a fact, but it's not, doesn't have this direct effect. While the economic policy in a country like US or UK actually do have, surprisingly, maybe for some, but yeah.
How does LAUNCHub's portfolio look like now at the beginning of 2025? How many startups do you? Of course, LAUNCHub has a very long history. It's, if I'm not mistaken, it's the third fund, right?
Now. If you count it 1, 2, 3, yes. We did the first one beta fund because it was just 9 million euros, so it was a very tiny vehicle designed to invest in companies with a mother company in Bulgaria back then. So these were money from European Investment Fund that we started managing in 2012 and investing in anyone willing to take 30 to 50K from us and establish a mother company.
You weren't picky.
Companies from Romania also being headquartered, meaning that just like set up a vehicle in Bulgaria, and of course the whole team continue to work from Romania and so on. So this beta fund, surprisingly, we are about 1.5x return. So we return it with profit, and we're still making profit. So we hope that this will go 2x by the end of this year. And as you can see, it takes a long time. When you invest very early, it takes a long time. Now, the first fund, and currently that's why we call the current fund second fund. So the second fund currently is a 74 million fund, started 4 years ago. This is the last year of its investment period, meaning we are investing with the current fund until the end of this year. And after that, you'll focus only on reserve, so supporting the existing portfolio that the fund is building. The current fund is probably the with a broader scope, so you invest across Southeast and Central Europe. Last year, as I told you, started very strong with the Series A in Colossian in Hungary, and then we've done 5 investments. So one cybersecurity in Greece, one cybersecurity in Croatia, one marketplace for industrial meat, headquartered in Bulgaria, surprisingly, and recently a company in industrial in warehouse inventory done by drones. So we also invest in hardware, usually hardware as a service businesses, and one other AI automation company based in Bulgaria. So at this point, we haven't done a Romanian investment last year, which is actually surprising. But one of our Romanian companies, Romanian investments, raised Series A. It's unfortunately not public last year, and another one hopefully will close this month. So we are actually quite happy with the Romanian investments. Our problem is that we don't see enough, right? That's why last year was more across Central and Eastern Europe and less in Romania.
Why? Why did this happen? Weren't you? Didn't you find something that was interesting or something that was worth your money? Well, what happened last year?
It is the countries. So first of all, Romania is in a cycle together with Bulgaria, where the very early stage money are not so available. So very early stage, I mean pre-seed. So these are the first checks of 500,000. and there is no a fund creating a lot of pipeline for us investing so early on. All of the funds in Romania have kind of a move up, so they're similar to what we are doing. They focus more on the seed rounds, and the pre-seed is kind of a left to angels. And this probably creates a bit of less companies are able to raise these initial checks than before. So this, on one hand side, could be the reason that we see less companies. On the other hand side, it's a complex thing. Building a startup requires, on one hand side, access and understanding and desire to do something new that is not so easy to grasp. So the startups need to solve a large problem for rich customers or a lot of customers. And there have been some very interesting companies starting from Romania, especially in the consumer space, for example, that are in large markets. But our consumer investment have been not so, except the marketplaces, prominent in our portfolio before. So we're a bit more cautious there. So that's the reason probably we haven't ventured into that so much. We prefer to go usually marketplaces and then focus on more of a B2B segment. The countries are also having this cyclical development in terms of startups. It's in some years you have a lot of entrepreneurs starting their companies. In some other years where things are a bit more comfortable or stable, not so many people are leaving their jobs to start a company, or maybe where the uncertainty is there, probably people also don't want to risk it. This will change. We see the change in Bulgaria, for example, now. It's driven by return of some of the immigrants that has been away for many years, and they have been in touch with these large problems that either businesses or individuals have, and they are willing to solve them locally or starting locally. We also think that sometimes you need a bit of a crisis to enter into a startup. It's not when everything is rosy, salaries are good, life is nice, you invest in a house, you buy a car. It's not really a good time for risking. But when things are not so rosy, and we had this period of Western companies firing people, also in Eastern Europe, or Western startups closing down and firing people. This actually puts people outside of their comfort zone, and then they are starting to think, right? No, what should I do now, right? And these are good moments for startups to be started. So I'm a big enthusiast to see how actually our deal flow, being now more towards Central Europe and Western Balkans, will shift back to Eastern Europe. I think we're going to be experiencing this in the next 2 years. So yeah, but it is how it is. I mean, there are some good years and some years with less interesting companies, or sometimes we are not able to enter into these so wonderful deals that are out there.
So in periods of crisis, real entrepreneurs, real founders come up with ideas, and ideas worth investing.
It stimulates the mind, so it stimulates the creativity. It is if everything is fine, I think that people are a bit less pressured or less stimulated to be creative and to look for solutions. So in our region, it may sound strange because crisis has been a constant has this constant presence in Eastern Europe, but I think it is a cycle, and the economic cycle goes this way. It's how they teach it in the universities, and actually it does stimulates birth of many of the biggest companies have been started in times like this. So.
Were there some verticals for the startups in your portfolio that, I don't know, let's say didn't perform as well as expected in 2024?
As I mentioned, we were a bit more skeptical on the consumer segment because the consumer segment is affected by the spending that it's mirroring the real economy. and with the real economy not growing fast enough, the spendings are lower. And we've seen this in our B2C marketplaces. So their performance have been affected by the sentiment, especially in the markets they operate. Other sectors where we haven't seen probably so many companies from our region are areas like climate. I think that here in Eastern Europe, we're still not facing the challenges or the problems the large corporations are facing when they operate in Western European countries. So we're expecting this to grow, but at this point it's been at a lower than expected. Although it is there, it wasn't there a few years ago, so we should not complain, right? It's still a major chunk of the pipeline we see. And again, there are other areas that are growing. So the software is changing a lot. Software as a service is changing a lot with large language models. So we see transformations in a lot in optimization of processes, in businesses, in automation, and this inevitably will bring more startups in those areas.
What can you do as an investor as a fund when you see such verticals and startups that are not performing as well as expected, as predicted? Because after all, at the end of the day, you need some return from the startups that you're investing in.
As investors, what we do is sometimes, because we're a smaller fund, so not always we have the time to sit down and deeply consider what are the areas that require improvement in certain verticals and analyze who is doing it, who is out there. We do this mostly to build a thesis around what we would like to invest in a certain vertical and what we don't want to invest in, or what should be the prerequisites of a good investment. So we've done this, for example, in AI. This usually theoretically prevents us from investing in certain types of companies where we think that the market is more saturated, there is no defensibility, probably we don't believe that there is a first mover advantage in it, and so on.
Can you give us some examples? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Example, if you like. So, for example, our AI thesis is that if the competitive edge in companies will hardly come from doing only the application layer of AI for something, just piggybacking on development of large language models and trying to capture a certain vertical, because usually the incumbents, in our view, will have more advantage because they have the data, and if they're fast enough to move towards implementation of models, they'll basically have more advantage in that. On the other hand side, for example, the incumbents will like the tool set. So there is additional tooling, as there was a web and web tools. Now we have AI and AI tools. So we think in the tooling, and we have a Romanian investment in this phase, so we're bullish of that, obviously. We see a lot of potential, because when many companies are starting to build on top of a certain technology, as they say in the gold rush, the ones that sell shovels, they also make a lot of money. So we focus on the companies that allow the adoption of certain technologies like AI in the enterprises as well. So from the security standpoint, this is difficult. From understanding, from the applicational standpoint and integrational standpoint, it's difficult. So, for example, our thesis is more there. Now, if our thesis is wrong or right, I don't know. We'll see, unfortunately, in a couple of years. Our feedback loop is very, very slow. But this is before we invest, right? So after we invest, now every plan is a good plan until it's faced with the market. When you face the market, the plan is it's a history, and you have to be adaptive. Now, the companies, sometimes they have headwinds. So a startup to be successful, you need a lot of tailwinds to succeed, a lot of momentum, a good understanding of why now there are some trends that will help you grow. But sometimes the trends change, and then there are headwinds, and it's becoming very, very difficult to be successful, even with the best team and starting right on a right market. And then what we do as an investor. So we of course can connect the companies with operators who can tactically provide first-hand experience, because our experience is not first-hand. Our understanding is more towards markets, so we guide them on the KPIs they need to achieve to be able to raise next round. This is what we can. We have a better understanding than the founders how the markets operate and how the other investors invest, but how to run their business is not something we can help them with. We can help them with network to provide first-hand experience from other businesses. Now, when the things are going gloomy, you have to understand that our business is this, that half of the companies are not going to be successful. That's simple statistic. Now, at the current fund at year 5, we have only 10% write-offs or companies that were not successful, but this will change over time, inevitably. And then founders need to understand that they don't need to, they need to think objectively. So basically, there are options to pivot, maybe there are options to be creative. And if there are not options for that, we encourage them to take care of employees and team, because this is what's important at the end of the day. And when the company is not getting successful, they sometimes ask us, guys, we are going to close the business, so what do you think we should do with there's some money remaining? And usually we don't want to return 10k, 20k or something. Our message is just, look, take care of the team, take care of not having any debt is possible, take care of suppliers as much as you can. And it's a natural part of life. Sometimes you face headwinds, and it's very difficult to change the market, so regardless how clever you are. Sometimes, and maybe this is a difference between us as Eastern Europeans and Americans. So the Americans, they're more into making business, and we are more into making products. And there is a big difference between that. So when you're more into making business, you're trying to figure out the problem and solve it. And this helps you pivot. This helps you change the idea. So sometimes companies that are from our diaspora, they change their ideas 3-4 times before they succeed. So we had a Series A in a company that pivoted 4 times in the last 2 years before it figured out the vertical and managed to grow from 0 to 2 million in 1 year of recurring revenue. So they were preempted, and obviously Series A happened last summer. But this mindset is not so typical here in Eastern Europe. People are stuck to their product. They usually create the best product on the market, so that's why they love it so much. We also love it as investors, but we know that the markets don't really, the best products don't really, not always succeed on the market. The most successful, the success doesn't depend on how good you are, unless you are really 10x or 100x better than anything else. But if you're like 2-3 times better, I know that when I come to Bucharest, for the same money, I can get probably slightly better hotel. Do I care? Really? I mean, like, yes, I can make the extra effort as consumer and have this better product with learning curve and everything that I'll put the effort to learn it. But if it's 2 times better, do I care? So I think as Eastern Europeans, we have to learn more about thinking about the business and think about making money. This is the business, and be willing to kill our babies, to stop doing these products we love so much, where we think we have competitive edge, when we see that the markets or the market dynamics are such that this will not be successful after a few months of experiments. Yeah, so this is how what happens with the least success, the ones that are not successful, and it's part of the game, both of % for investors.
Speaking about headwinds and tailwinds, as you mentioned before, what challenges do you see now in 2025 for founders, both in Bulgaria and Romania, but also for investors?
All right, challenges remains. So I started that I expect very positive development, way more positive in 2025. But this won't happen overnight, and it's not going to be without challenges. I think that the startup companies and investors as well learn to be more focused on sustainability and less focused solely on growth as a metric. And this helped created a generation, if not generation, but it helped. Nowadays, we focus on more sustainable startups that balance their burn rate with their revenue growth in a way that will allow them to survive 24 months with the initial funding from us usually. Before that, it was more fast-paced, so the seed investment was spent drastically faster, and the startups were raising Series A's in shorter time, so 12 to 18 months. Now in 2025, the capital is returning, but it's not returning in the quantities that it was available in 2021. Many of the Americans or Western funds actually stopped looking in our region, in Southeast Europe. From very practical perspective, they said we need to focus on the markets we understand well. It was nice playing there, but now we don't want to go there so often. We don't want to be proactive. We don't need people on the ground. And they have reduced their operation and focus on the markets that either because of population or because of education or other factors are more fruitful in terms of startup creation. So the founders from our region will be faced with less capital availability. They'll be faced with something that was here before COVID and before Zoom, that the access to Western capital is become a bit more restricted. Some of the funds in UK would invest only if the company has a UK presence. Some of the funds in US we invest only if you have US presence. So it's back in the old days, we instead of uniting the world, we are unfortunately slicing it. And for us, it's not helping because we're not in these large chunks. We're somehow outside, and we need to get there. So that's why I think that funds like ours, funds like the one you have in Romania, and in all the countries nowadays have venture funding, are essentials to bridge again this gap that wasn't here before. That for several years we didn't have it. So 2020, 2021, it was a zero problem for a Series A happening on a shorter conversation than this one with the USVC. Now it's not the case. So this challenge remains. Then companies and at the end of the day, startups, they do sell to the real economy. They do sell to their customers are part of the real economy. And when Europe and Germany is stagnating, obviously some areas will be more difficult than others. Some customers will have tighter budgets. They'll have a longer decision making. So the startups needs to be resilient, or much more resilient, to be able to achieve these metrics. Although the investors are now again, their expectation of metrics here lower, and their expectation of burn rate is lower than before. But it will be a challenge. It will be a challenge to sell to European companies. It will be a challenge to sell to the European consumer. It will be a challenge to bridge the gap between us and larger markets. And availability of capital is not so big. There is a huge competition for people, so the talent is really scarce. We praise that we do have developers, but they're never enough. So we don't have so many as you would like to have, neither in Bulgaria nor in Romania nor in any other country. So this access to talent is still scarce, and the talent is not cheap. So as I said, with the first beta fund, we were investing on average 100,000 euro. And with 100,000 euro back in 2012, the company were able to survive 12 months and build a small team of 5-6 people. It's obviously impossible nowadays. So you need 1 million to be able to do that. So things are getting more expensive, and then the companies to compete, because the startups, they do compete. So whatever kind of a genius idea somebody has, it will be genius at the moment, and in next year it may not be, because there'll be competition. And now it's very unpleasant to compete with somebody who have 50 million of funding and you have one. Obviously they are able to hire people you don't have access to. they're able to do marketing you're not able to do. They're able to make noise, and you have this good product, but obviously they have the noise about their product, and then this severe disadvantage. So these disadvantages and discrepancies will still be here next year, unfortunately for us and for the startup founders from our region. So that's why probably we focus so much on the next round. We focus so much on how we can help them get to the next round, to the larger portion of money, which is essentially important to be able to remain competitive with competitions from other countries. So that's it won't be without challenges. It's not all roses.
That's definite. You've talked about Romania before during our discussion, but I was curious because I found something that you said in 2021. You are referring at Romania to Romania as being the most active market in the region when it comes both to startups and investments. And I was curious if you still believe that to be true. Why yes? Why no? You mentioned that last year you weren't very happy with what you saw in Romania.
I stand behind my words because we did 6 investments in Romanian founders, and out of the 6, 3 of them have already raised Series A or Series B, and 3 of them are yet to be seen. So probably one of them is very, very interesting. So we hope that there will be 4 raising Series A out of the 6, and we hope to make 1 more. So hopefully we have the chance during this year to make 1 more Romanian investment. Hopefully. Now, 2021 was way more exciting year from my perspective regarding the Romanian market. There was availability of early stage capital. There was a boom of in the VC investments generally. So as a market, Romania was one of the most fruitful markets around us. As a regional fund, I'll say that nowadays we see more deal flow or more deals that fit within our thesis, because it's very difficult to generalize if this market is good. And for some investors, it's good, for some it's not, right? But for us, we started to see more in countries like from the Western Balkan region that for example, 2021, we haven't done much there because of, again, lack of something that fits our thesis. We started to see a lot in Greece, and Romania is probably somewhere in the middle. But from the fund perspective, from the overall portfolio composition, 20% of our investments are done in Romanian founders. Some of them are in Romania, some of them are diaspora, so some of them are not based in Romania, but they are from the Romanian region. And 20%, so Romania is at the same level, or actually probably is the largest portion of our geographical distribution from the portfolio perspective. So Bulgaria will be a bit smaller, and then Greece, Central Europe, Baltics, or Hungary, or Croatia, and so on, will be actually smaller chunks. So we still are surprisingly mostly invested in Romanian startup as a percentage of number of deals or percentage of money deployed. They're invested in these companies, but it has been done mostly at the beginning of the fund, and now at the end of the fund we see less. We hope to start a new fund next year. So that, again, at the beginning of the fund, we think the cycle will change. So from the, if you like, from the perspective of the Southeast Europe or the Eastern Europe, Romania has the potential to be the most interesting country, both from terms of population, from terms of investors' appetite, in terms of availability of resources, because you have not only funds like us that are neighboring, you have also funds that are based in Romania, you have international funds coming in. So from that perspective, it's already developed ecosystem. There is nothing stopping it from becoming really, really interesting. Now Romania is becoming expensive, surprisingly, because of the economic growth. So we also see some of the companies actually are saying, okay, maybe having my developers in UK makes more sense than having them in Cluj, which is surprising. But it's a price, it's a calculation that some of the founders do in our portfolio that surprises as well. But yeah, everything is there. I think that what we need to see more is this enthusiasm of people of starting companies, and the path is more visible because you already had these companies becoming very successful from Romania, so others can see this and try to replicate it. It's we're not in a situation like before where we don't know how this is done. I mean, there are people around you who have done it, not in a big quantity, but it will come over time. And what we are still missing is that people who become successful, they need to start maybe more actively participating in the community. Participating could be time, could be advice, could be being open, could be money sometimes.
Giving something back, essentially.
Yeah, or being a part of it. So not forgetting that this is the place where you started, and encouraging others to walk the path, because it doesn't. You don't need to give always money. You can give your experience, you can give your time, you can give your effort, if you like, to this. And it's important because the whole the real economy, even if you like, from this perspective, the economy of Romania and Bulgaria and other countries is heavily dependent on new companies starting. The new company starting, all of them will have bank accounts. All of their employees who have bank accounts, they'll have mortgages, customers of your banking system. They'll have insurances, they'll be customers of your insurance company. They'll have pensions, right? They'll be customers of your pension system and our pension system, and so on and so on. But if you look at it from this perspective, neither your banks, your insurers, your pension funds, or ours are actually contributing anything. They're benefiting, but not playing about. So for them, these customers comes from somewhere. They're created somehow, but how they're created, nobody actually understands or really is enabled, if you like, even from the legislative perspective, to invest. So to have more startups, you need to have, as I mentioned, also these early stage funds that we don't have them currently in Romania and Bulgaria, and we see them now in Croatia, we see them now in Slovenia, and we see how their pension fund invest in funds like ours and others that actually are creating this ecosystem, and they're like, it makes sense. First of all, I'm allowed to do it. Second of all, I'm a long-term investor. It diversifies my portfolio. It creates more customers. So I want to do it. It's a good for everyone. From this element, we are still behind. So hopefully this will also change in the next 2 to 3 years in Bulgaria and Romania, and it will be not only the successful startup and the IT people contributing back, but it will be more general understanding that if we would like to be competing economies, how do we achieve that? We cannot achieve it by digging resources from the ground. We have to achieve it by creating new large enterprises. So that's why it's an integral part of the economy. So we are getting there slowly. Yeah.
Do you think that there are some, let's say, differences in specialities when it comes to startups and founders in Romania and in Bulgaria? I don't know, are Romanians better at doing fintechs and Bulgarians better at, I don't know, drones or something like this, space technology? I was curious because I was wondering if you also think from what you've seen during these years, if we are, I don't know, missing some opportunities as startups. I don't know, maybe some segments or verticals that we are not grasping or lagging on. I know, for example, that there are a few startups in Bulgaria that have seized the opportunities in defense, also taking into consideration what's been happening for the last 3 years at our border. And Romanians not so much.
Some differences. I'm trying to think how to present them, but these differences are more diluted. They're not so visible. Defense could be one of them. Although I do think that Romania is well better positioned because you feel the pain. You're closer to what's happening in Ukraine. So your focus on this should be bigger than in Bulgaria. But it's true that with accelerations like NATO, acceleration fund, Diana, and so on, we see a lot of application coming from our region to that. But there is very big challenges in defense. It's very difficult to test. You need to real test. So, whatever you're doing in defense, you need to test it, right? Like every startup needs to test with your customers. They need to test it on the battlefield, but on the battlefield means actually on the battlefield in defense, right? So if you do a drone detection system, you have to put it out there and test it. And this will require cooperation from the military and understanding that these tests are essential. And now I think in Europe, we are starting to have this understanding, and we're starting to have this understanding from the military that they need to be open, they need to encourage this and so on. So we are looking at, actually my next conversation is, to be honest, again, a defense technology that is currently cooperating with the British Army. And they are testing it there. And I'm like, well, okay, we can do this here, just it's not so open and easy. So I don't know how different we are in defense tech. There are companies being created, but they face the same challenges. Now, for example, Romanians have walked the way of creating a large cybersecurity company like Bitdefender. So this inevitably has created more people in cybersecurity with understanding of cybersecurity than in Bulgaria. So we lack the talent to be there to create startups. So we usually bet on the diaspora because they've been in such companies and they can create that. So you can say it's more unique towards Romania. Now, Bulgaria is a smaller country. So whatever we create, we usually create it for outside for export. Romanians sometimes tend to create B2B solutions that are more internally focused, at least at the beginning. This has advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, you can have some really big customers. For example, with the e-commerce focused solution in Romania, but this may slow your growth internationally, which could be. I don't think it's a difference between the talent. It's a difference in the approach. So. Also in the fintech, in the banking industry, you can see that you have very, very prominent startups in fintech. So we have, and they have started by selling to local banks. So one of them, okay, the other one has actually directly went international. But it's a bit less replicable in Bulgaria because we don't have local banks with decision making. They're all headquartered somewhere, and decision making is not in this small country; it's somewhere else. So we cannot replicate this success in early sales in the local market to validate, to test, to have engaged customers. So these are differences in the market. In the talent, there are some specializations that the countries are actually trying to support. So, for example, in Bulgaria, Insight Institute is one of the largest research institutions globally for AI. So they've been funded with 200 million euro from the government, and with probably 100 million from the private sector. We are also contributing, and you can do a PhD, you can do a bachelor, you can specialize, and the quality, because it's done with the cooperation with TTH in Zurich, you basically have these world-class professors that are at 5 places. It's one of them is Sofia. So I see international students from everywhere, especially in visual, in understanding and AI. You can come work here. Is this bringing startups? Yes, it does. It creates usually at least one per year. So you can say that, and also it gives access to the people to something, to the top class of talent in terms of brains being available. But overall, it's not so much difference. There is not so much difference. I mean, it's again, we all tend to do the best products. We all tend to lack the ability to sell ourselves and market ourselves. We also, as a fund, if you like, the same. We have the same very, very similar mentality. And the mentality is very, very common across the region. It's not but the mentality has its advantages also, because it's way more stable, predictable, honest, if you like. We are quite transparent and honest compared to other countries. We less bullshit, if you like, when we sell. So I kind of very much like nowadays to interact within the region, because you understand the level of interaction is very, very similar. And we have to improve some of those deficiencies. However, it's not easy. So we're very much the same. Yeah. Less. I'm sorry. I think we're less specialized than we want to be, and we think we are.
Thank you very much. My next curiosity is about Bulgaria, and also it connects to Romania, because unfortunately we've seen in Bulgaria a few political crises over the years, and yet startups have worked and developed in this environment, or despite this environment. Romania was a bit quiet, but nowadays we're not so quiet anymore. We're entering some kind of turmoil, and unfortunately we were hoping to get rid of the turmoil at the end of 2024. Unfortunately, it still goes on in 2025, or at least half of this year. My curiosity is, how can a startup better navigate such an environment that's not too cozy, or that doesn't encourage development or new ideas?
Look, in terms of political environment, we are very, very similar. So, we live in Eastern Europe. We have Danube River dividing us, but I think we have spread the talent, and unfortunately the idiots more or less equally on the two sides of Danube. And a particular group of this is in the politics in both countries. When Bulgaria we have been without the government for I don't know how long. I stopped counting. I think more than 2 years now, or longer. But startups are not focused internally. They don't make solutions for the internal market. They don't test, if you like, on the internal market. It's too small. They are focused on larger problems out there. They do suffer, if you like. We also have a person from Romania in the team. Maria is in Cluj. She's been with us more than 3 years now. I think she's doing the reporting to our LPs, and she's been very depressed lately on our meetings. You can see that she's depressed because of changes in the political system that affects her. So this affects us as people. We see that things are not improving. They're not going as we want them to go. We're wasting our time. We are wasting our effort on the simple things that should be easy, and we should be focusing on what we do best. So this affects the speed in which everything is happening, and ultimately affects the speed with which the startups are moving. And it's not good. And I don't know how to change it. No clue. But we do tend to move slowly. We do tend to have other things outside the world we need to solve. We do tend to be faced with inefficient systems around us, and challenges and troubles that other people simply don't think of. But this is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that having this informational deficiency, or not being able to be close to the large markets and large problems of these large markets puts us in a disadvantage, that we are working on solutions that sometimes are already done, on problems that are already solved, because we as people, we tend to solve the problems we see, and we see different problems from people elsewhere, and this focus our minds elsewhere. So they don't see the same troubles with the political system. The problems that actually they can influence, that they can solve, and so on, and their attentions goes there. in our case, we are what we are. We live where we live, and we need to walk this way, this path until stability, prosperity, and so on. It will come. It may take some time. But by the way, I've been coming to Romania since 2013, 2012, 2013. It's incomparable. As an outside individual entering Bucharest, it's incomparable. Most of you will not remember, but there was just Promenada and the Round Tower, and there was nothing. There was no co-working spaces. There were no large office buildings. There was nothing 10 years ago. Seriously, 10 years ago. Now, it's a completely different story. So I'm very bullish on the economic development, actually, of Romania. I think that Romania is very much on the right track, that some of the reforms that we didn't manage to pass, especially in judicial system, are working there. So with the economic growth, there'll be more availability of money. There will be more availability of talent, also important, if you like, or we'll see more people coming back, which is important, also affecting us and affecting the startup ecosystem. Hopefully things will be functioning more smoothly, so that people will be able to focus on larger issues. And these larger issues are important. I mean, people are thinking how I can change the political and economic system of my country. Well, the only way to change it, in my view, is to build a large company, to be influential, and to be a role model. Because when you're to change the mindset, you need a role model. And if you have the role model of the corrupted politician, sorry, more applicable to Bulgaria, no offense to Romania at all, yeah. and a role model that is twisted, then we grow in a twisted environment. But if you see how people are successful, how they build big businesses, how they contributed back, how many of the employees of these businesses create other businesses and they contributed to the economy, and this influenced the mindset. These are the role models that the young people may focus on, understanding that there is a career of entrepreneurship, of a business, not only of working for somebody, and this will help us as economists and as political system or whatever move better and move faster and towards more worthy goals, I think. So that's why when I say that we are living in our bubble and we're focusing on problems that are outside and we're not so affected directly, we have this indirect effect, but our success is important for the economy. I mean, it's not unrelated, and vice versa. We are affected by lack of private money, lack of capital, lack of venture funds, and the daily troubles. So it is connected, but hopefully we have way larger advantage compared to many other businesses that really needs to interact with the governments, needs to interact with the inefficiencies directly. We don't, which is good. So.
Thank you very much, Rumen. And we are approaching the end of our discussion, but not before coming back to LAUNCHub and talking about your strategy for this year. I don't know, how many investments do you plan? What's your budget?
My average investment nowadays for us is closer to 2 million only from us. So usually 3 million seed round, it's our sweet spot. When we lead with 2 million or co-invest. My deepest desire will be to make one more deal in Romania for this year. And I'm modest, one is fine. And we plan to make 2 more, geographically speaking, wherever they come in Southeast Europe. And this will be because we started the year very strong with 2 new deals. So basically, usually 5 per year it's a good number. So that's why if for the last 3 deals for this year that we hope, I mean they could be more than 3, but let's average here. One is Romania, and I'll be very happy for that. And let's see. So we are open for business, investing from the current fund. The current fund is reaching the end of its investment cycle, so we're unfortunately a bit more picky. Inevitably, you become very selective when you know that you have only a few shots left, not 30, but 3 or 4.
You want to make them count.
count, you want to make it meaningful. So we tend to be now more picky, more thinking it over, and more deliberate in our decisions. And simultaneously, we are starting to raise a new fund, which, by the way, surprisingly, we also have some initial commitments from Romanians, from angels.
That's cool.
there.
I wanted to ask you if you're planning to, now you are coming to the end of this fund, if you're also beginning to fundraise for the next.
We started fundraising, so we opened talks with the initial investors, and we had a very easy fundraising for the current fund in 2021. Now it won't be so easy, so we plan a longer process. Hopefully, starting at the end of the year with the new fund. And as surprisingly or not surprisingly, we actually are having some interest from people in Romania, businesses and individuals, and it's completely normal. I mean, it's as I think as business partners, we've been around for quite some time, so we've worked together and all operated together, which is quite normal, and we are open to interact, especially with people who can be helpful to the startups, who can be helpful to and engage. You know, the large portion of the money will come from the institutional investors, corporations, and family offices, but the individuals that are actually engaged, they help us with operational experience in the portfolio companies. They help us with network and so on. So they're very, very valuable for us. So we cherish them a lot, regardless of the amount. I mean, so, yeah.
Is this different from the current fund? Did you have individuals that were interested in investing?
But less. So, for example, from the current fund, we have about 35 individuals. With the new fund, we think this number will double, simply because we see the value in that, not only monetary-wise, but we see value in terms of deal flow. We see value in terms of helping the companies being engaged and so on. So these are usually angels or people who run businesses, who run corporations. At least these are the usual suspects at the beginning. Exited founders from our portfolio, by the way. Surprisingly, we have six now, I think, in the current fund from the previous exits. Although the exit environment wasn't great in the last 2 years, we hope to have more. So we have the first commitments also from exited founders. So this is also valuable. So, yeah, but it's a process. I mean, and we are faced with the challenges as every other startup. So we have our own deck. We go to people, we present it.
Now you're on the other side of the table. You're fundraising.
So sometimes people are like, "Yeah, but you don't know it." Well, yeah, I know it. I mean, from time to time, I do the same. Less often than startups. I mean, but still. So yeah, we do this as well.
And at the end, I would like to ask you to give us a piece of advice for Romanian founders. How should they prepare for 2025, taking into consideration all we've talked about and how the entire context in the region?
It's very difficult to give advice to founders of their business, so I'll be more general. I'll be more like think about. I'll finish. Okay. No. This probably is not suitable for interview, but my advice is in the direction of think how to do business, not how to do product. I'm repeating myself in that, and understand that not the best product in the world is the most successful one. It's not usually the case, I think it's suitable. You can cut it anytime you like. But when I was pitching to my partner Ruben, who is one of the first entrepreneurs he raised money in 1999 from Tiger Global. He did the first how do you call it, web business in Bulgaria. Is 1.0 in the 90s, with the largest email client, with the largest video sharing tools, news media sites, and so on. And I was presenting to him a few years ago a wonderful product. I mean, wonderful company done by very nerdy founders, very focused on creating the best product out there. And he was like, "Why would you like to invest in that?" And I was like, "It's an amazing product. I mean, I really believe it's way better than anything in this specific field." And he looked at them and he asked me, "Rumen, what would you like think about it like, what would you like to be? To be the best lover in the world, or to be known as the best lover in the world? And I was like, okay, that's a good question. So my advice would be, think about how to be known as the lovers, how to be known as having the best product, and less focus on really doing product, because we do good products. It's a fact. We do good products, but we rarely fail because of good products. We usually fail because of lack of sales, understanding, agility, and so on.
Good. Thank you very much, Rumen, and best of luck also this year. We're looking forward to news from you guys, and hopefully we'll see some investments also in Romania. Hopefully you'll have something that catches your eye here. Thank you once again for your time and your very valuable insights. And thank you guys for watching us today. And don't forget that we can see each other every day on startup.ro, on our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, and on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned. Thanks you once again, and have a nice day.